Most people have never heard this, and I mean that literally. This is one of those facts that scientists confirmed just months ago, published in one of the most respected journals on the planet, and it barely made a ripple. So let me say it clearly. Humans were writing 40,000 years ago. Not 5,000, not 10,000, 40,000. And for most of human history, including most of modern science, we walked right past the evidence and never understood what we were looking at. That changes today. We've always been told the same story. Writing was invented around 3000 BC in ancient Mesopotamia by the Sumerians, tracking grain, tracking livestock, tracking trade. The first writing system was called proto-cuneiform, little wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay tablets. Simple, practical, revolutionary. And for a long time, that was the whole story. Farming came first, then cities, then writing, in that order, nice and clean. The birth of writing, 5,300 years ago. Mesopotamia, done. Except it's not done. Not even close. In February 2026, a paper was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS, one of the most prestigious scientific journals that exists. And what it said quietly broke that entire timeline. Not a little bit, not a technicality. The researchers found evidence that humans were encoding structured information in symbols 40,000 years ago, 35,000 years before Mesopotamia even existed, and the data was undeniable. Let's put that in perspective. Think about everything humans have built. The Egyptian pyramids around 2500 BC, the Roman Empire, medieval castles, the Industrial Revolution. All of recorded history. Every war, every empire, every invention you've ever learned about in school. All of that, every single bit of it, fits into the last 5,000 years. Now, imagine a timeline stretching from today all the way back. Way, way back. Past Egypt, past the first cities, past agriculture itself. Back to a time when a small group of humans lived in caves in what is now southwestern Germany. No cities, no farming, no metal. And yet, they were doing something remarkable. Something we almost missed entirely. 40,000 years ago, modern humans had just arrived in Europe. And when I say modern humans, I mean people exactly like you and me. Same brain size, same cognitive ability, same capacity for language, for creativity, for complex thought. They had just walked out of Africa, crossed mountains, survived winters that make today's worst weather look mild. The climate was brutal. Ice Age Europe was cold, open steppe, woolly mammoths, cave lions, temperatures that would kill you in days without shelter. And these people didn't just survive. They made flutes out of bird bones. They carved stunning lion-human sculptures from mammoth ivory. They painted animals on cave walls with artistic precision that still impresses us today. They were extraordinary. And some of them, in the caves of the Swabian Jura region of southwestern Germany, were doing something else. They were picking up pieces of mammoth ivory and carving into them. Deliberately, carefully. Rows of dots, short lines, crosses, notches, repeating in patterns across the surface. The objects were found across multiple caves in the region. Vogelherd Cave, Geisenklusterli Cave, Hollenstein-Stadel Cave. Artifacts dating between 34,000 and 45,000 years old. And they were small, portable, the kind of thing you could hold in the palm of your hand, the kind of thing you'd carry with you. Which raises a question that scientists had been quietly ignoring for decades. What exactly were these for? For a long time, the assumption was simple. Decoration, artistic expression, pattern making, interesting to look at, aesthetically pleasing, but not meaningful in any deeper sense. Ancient humans making pretty marks. That was the comfortable answer, and it held for decades. But two researchers decided to ask a different question. Not what do these symbols mean, but do these symbols follow a measurable pattern? Do they have structure? Do they carry information? And what they found when they ran the numbers changed everything. Professor Christian Benz, a linguist at Saarland University in Germany, and archaeologist Eva Dudkiewicz from the Museum of Prehistory in Berlin built a database. They digitized more than 3,000 individual symbols taken from 260 Paleolithic artifacts. Then they ran those symbols through computational analysis, tools normally used to study modern languages, measuring something called entropy, information density. How complex are these sequences? How structured? How non-random? They weren't trying to decode the symbols. They weren't claiming to know what they said. They were asking a simpler, more powerful question. How much information do these sequences carry? And how does that compare to the earliest known writing? On one side, the Ice Age carvings. Dots, lines, crosses, notches, carved into mammoth bone, 40,000 years old. On the other side, proto-cuneiform, the earliest confirmed writing system. Ancient Mesopotamia, 3000 BC, 5,300 years old. The stuff you learned about in school as the beginning of writing. Benz and Dudkiewicz measured the information density of both, the statistical complexity of both, the structural patterns of both, and then they put the numbers next to each other. The Ice Age carvings, 40,000 years old. The proto-cuneiform tablets, 3000 BC. Same. Information density, the same. Structural complexity, the same. Measurable pattern, the same. 35,000 years apart. Matched. They matched. Even the researchers didn't expect that. Benz said, and I'm quoting directly here, "We hypothesized that the early proto-cuneiform script would be more similar to the writing systems of today, especially due to their relative proximity in time. Yet the more we studied them, the clearer it became that proto-cuneiform is very similar to the much older Paleolithic sign sequences." Let that land for a second. The oldest known writing system had more in common with 40,000-year-old cave carvings than it did with the words you're reading on your screen right now. So what were they actually recording? The study doesn't decode the symbols. Nobody has. But the findings help us narrow it down. Think about what life required in Ice Age Europe. You're in a small group, maybe 20 to 40 people, moving across a brutal landscape, tracking prey animals, tracking seasons, tracking resources. How many mammoths did we see last month? Which migration routes are open? How many people do we have? How much food do we need? That kind of coordination requires memory, shared memory, memory that outlasts any single person. And the objects themselves tell us something important. They were small, portable, fits in the palm of your hand. Similar to proto-cuneiform tablets, Dudkiewicz noted. You carried them with you. This wasn't art hung on a wall. This was information on the move. Here's what I want you to sit with. 40,000 years ago, before cities, before farming, before any civilization we recognize, a human being picked up a piece of mammoth ivory and made marks on it. Deliberate marks, structured marks, marks that carried information. They did it because some things were worth remembering, because knowledge shared across time is survival. And that impulse, the impulse to take something in your mind and fix it permanently outside your body, that impulse is at least 40,000 years old. Writing didn't suddenly appear in Mesopotamia. It was the final chapter of a story that had been building for tens of thousands of years. We didn't invent the urge to write. We inherited it. The dots became lines. Lines became symbols. Symbols became words. Words became laws. Letters. Books. Science. Every text you've ever sent. Every email. Every note you've taken. Every story ever told in written form. Every one of them is a direct descendant of those carved dots on a piece of mammoth bone in a cold cave in Germany, 40,000 years ago. Benz put it best. The human ability to encode information in signs and symbols was developed over many thousands of years. Writing is only one specific form in a long series of sign systems. We are that series, still going. And that's the story. A 2026 paper published in PNAS that quietly rewrote the history of human communication. Most people still haven't heard it, but you have. If this kind of thing is what you're into, ancient humans, real science, the stories that actually matter, then you're in exactly the right place. Hit subscribe, new video every week. And next week, we're going somewhere even stranger. A species of human that scientists barely know existed. Their DNA is quietly living inside millions of people alive right now, including possibly you. Stay curious. I'll see you there.